Welcome to our channel. On today's video, we're going to talk about the top 10 worst neighborhoods in Louisville, Kentucky for 2021. The city had 188 murders. This is a record, shattering the previous year's record. Louisville also had almost 600 people injured by gunfire. That means that violence in the city is out of control. That means that homicides are popping up all over the city. To understand this rise in crime, we have to understand that the city had housing projects. Iroquois, which was known as the Dirty Eye, Park Duval, Clarksdale, and many other projects were destroyed by the city. The people that were in those projects became part of the regular neighborhoods. When they entered the normal neighborhoods, they started to feud with the hoods that were already there, making neighborhoods that before were normal into complete war zones. The condition of violence and crime in Louisville, Kentucky was only aggravated by the Breonna Taylor situation, which took place on the east side of the city that we're looking at now. Historically, the west end of the city was the most dangerous neighborhood and it held most of the crime. However, in recent years, crime, homicides have spread throughout the entire city. We explored the city in 2021, and I mentioned on the video that at night the city felt like one of the most dangerous places we had been to. And in fact, seeing the crime rates at the end of the year, Louisville is among the top 20, if not the top 10 most dangerous cities in the entire country, according to crime rates and murder stats. The city is home to many known artists and other important individuals. Muhammad Ali grew up in the west end of the city, and he learned how to box on the east end in the Smoketown neighborhood. Most recently, Nappy Roots, 2K Baby, and many other artists have come from the city. Famous artist Bryson Tiller claims to have lived in the Hazelwood neighborhood in the south side of the city. In the 90s, gang rivalries between the Bloods and the Crips started, and gang problems have not stopped in Louisville. Number 10 is the Portland neighborhood. This is a predominantly white area that is on the northwest side of the city, surrounded by African American neighborhoods. This neighborhood is historic and beautiful. However, it has seen better days in the past. The beautiful historic buildings are in bad condition and the crime rate is high. Kentucky's opioid situation is among the worst in the country, and according to news sources for 2021, Kentucky's was the highest in the entire country, and this neighborhood has seen the worst of it. Portland was founded as an individual city, and by the 1850s, it had been annexed into the city of Louisville. It was originally founded by French, Irish, and German settlers, and was able to maintain its white population despite the fact it was surrounded by African American communities. This is far from being a good neighborhood, and it remains as some of the worst neighborhoods in the entire city. While gentrification and investments and new businesses and restaurants and a hipster scene has opened up on the east end of the city, the west side of the city remains absolutely untouched by these changes and continues to be a poor and dangerous place. Number 9 is Shively. Located in the southwest side of the city, this neighborhood or city was once a sundown town all the way up until the 1960s, and today is about 30% African American. Historically, this area has had some of the best distilleries known to the United States, and some of your favorite beverages may have been distilled right here in the Louisville, Kentucky area. This section of the city is known for strip clubs, crime, and its racist past. Many of the residents working in factories or other bad-paying occupations. It is definitely not a neighborhood you want to move to. Number 8, the California, Russell, and Parkland neighborhoods, which is the west central part of the city. These neighborhoods are among the deadliest in the entire city, and it is known to be gang territory. From the 1950s to the 1980s, this neighborhood was part of urban decay. It means that the people left and the neighborhoods, the homes, were left completely vacant and abandoned. However, the city of Louisville has had urban development take place. It has not reduced the crime, but it has got rid of the urban decay, and now the city of Louisville has less buildings in decrepit condition. For many decades, these sections of the city were completely abandoned and run by crime a virtual no man's land. And today, while the people have returned, the neighborhood continues to be dangerous. With some of the highest concentration of homicides, these neighborhoods are dangerous to this day. Number 7, the South Side neighborhood. This neighborhood is not as known as other neighborhoods in the city, but if you look at the murder stats, you'll see that every single year, some of the worst news stories come out of this neighborhood. It is a terrifying neighborhood with large apartment complexes that have been used as government housing in the past, and some of the residents continue to return to live there now that they are apartments. It is a gridlock of buildings. The largest, historically known as the Americana Apartments, was for a while military housing, then it became public housing, and now it is rebranded as apartments. These are 72 buildings in decrepit condition. Dozens of people have lost their lives in this miserable place, including people that I knew personally. Political exiles from Cuba, Korea, Vietnam, Sudan, Somalia, Iraq, Bosnia, and other countries that were at war were brought here to start their lives in America. Most of the residents that came here from those places moved to other places that were more prosperous, and the ones that remain here have not got too far in life. The South Side neighborhood has been a horrible place to live, and it will continue to be one of the worst places in the entire city of Louisville. Dangerous, murderous, and with absolutely no future. The demolition of the Iroquois housing projects nearby brought even more people from a poor background to the area. This is definitely a place in Louisville you don't want to end up in. Walking these streets at night to a grocery store or anything else is a guaranteed way to get robbed. Number 6 is the Jacobs neighborhood, located in the south central part of the city. This neighborhood consists of large apartment complexes that are in really bad shape. Some of them are even abandoned. The area is known for high population density, lots of crimes. If you Google this neighborhood on the internet, you'll find things like gang fights, street fights, rap music videos, and the like. Known for drug sales, and the only thing to do within this area are liquor stores, strip clubs, and a Goodwill. This neighborhood has changed very little over the decades and remains a place that's really going nowhere. If for some reason in life you end up living in this neighborhood, you're going to see some very scary stuff. Number 5 is the Taylorberry neighborhood. It is right next to Jacobs, and this area is also not a place you want to end up. Nothing about this neighborhood is appealing or noteworthy. What can be said is that this area around Churchill Downs has had one of the city's largest concentrations of homicides, many of them going unsolved, which means that the people who did them are still out there. It is a terrifying neighborhood known for extortion and prostitution. Nothing good comes out of this area, and again, a high concentration of strip clubs, meaning that there's nothing really good or wholesome for your family to do unless you take your family to the flea market, which is also a place known for pimps to inhabit. It's just a bad neighborhood. There's also a large apartment complex that has a Mexican community for some reason here. And the residential areas adjacent to that are also scary, full of homicides and gangs, and not a place you want to end up regardless. Number 4 is the West End. Technically it's called Shawnee, but everybody calls this side of town the West End. This neighborhood has the pride that it is the childhood home of Muhammad Ali, the legend that the city of Louisville is very proud of. A young boy who would be beat and abused in his neighborhood until he was taught to defend himself. And not only that, but he also went on to become one of the greatest champions in history, who despite racism and disrespect from other people, he still went on to do some of the most incredible work that the boxing world has ever seen, to not only go to school in the West End, but also every single day on my way to school, I would pass the childhood home of Muhammad Ali. And it inspired me a lot because even at that age, you knew that coming from that neighborhood, you could be somebody if you really wanted to. And many of the kids that I went to school with there, the majority of them were African American. A lot of them are very successful people today. Even though they came from a very poor background, they did not let that determine where they would end up in their future. is very known here as well for gang violence and murders, and there is a lot of spots that are dangerous and quite bad. The entire West End has historically been the worst part of the city. However, over recent years it has improved and other areas are worse, but historically this was the worst neighborhood in the entire city, and it was a privilege to spend so many years of my life in this neighborhood with some of the greatest people I've ever met and some of the best teachers I ever had. And while I lived in the South Side neighborhood, we were bused to the West End for school. Number 3 is the Smoketown neighborhood. As you're passing Interstate 65 right through downtown Louisville, there's a small neighborhood all surrounded by big buildings and gentrification that was historically an African American community. Now the Clarksdale housing projects were here and they are now gone. My father used to work right across from the Clarksdale projects, and I spent a lot of time in this neighborhood. Today, this area is almost like a mini Kensington, with homeless people and addicts hanging out underneath the interstate, buying, selling openly, and it's really become one of the worst neighborhoods in the entire city, if not the entire country. It is really sad, some of the things you'll see here. Many documentaries and YouTube channels are based around this neighborhood, and they all revolve around the same concept. It's a dangerous place full of drugs, addiction, and people who have really gone in the wrong direction. The legend of Muhammad Ali was trained in this neighborhood, and the Clarksdale projects had a beautiful memorial for him that after the projects were destroyed were still left there. Number 2 is Newburg, and this is going to be a surprise to the people of Louisville, but actually a lot of the murders have been happening in Newburg. There's more action in the suburbs, there's major roads coming through here, there's more people moving here, and all that means there's more people, there's more activity, there's more crime, there's more money moving, and the propensity for violence is actually a whole lot higher than in places that are kind of chill. Newburg has always been kind of hood, and the surrounding area has never been the best in Louisville, even though it's kind of far out to the suburbs. But in recent years, it's gotten a lot worse. And when we look at the recent homicides, a lot of them are happening here, and that's definitely not a good sign. This has happened in Atlanta, it has happened in Birmingham, it has happened in Memphis, and it's also happening in Louisville. There's a lot of different people here as well. There's Bosnians, there's Cubans, there's Mexicans. It's just a much bigger mix of people, so there's different things going on. And while the neighborhood doesn't have the respect as the West End or some of the older neighborhoods, in recent times there's a lot of stuff going on out here. Recently, an artist from Louisville did a collaboration with Yo Gotti, who is a famous artist from Memphis, and the music video was filmed in Newburg, so people are starting to brag about being from here. All the elements are there, and usually the violence follows. Number 1 is the Park Hill neighborhood and adjacent Park Hill housing projects. As we have mentioned, much of the violence in Louisville, Kentucky came from the housing projects that were demolished and the people moving into those neighborhoods, changing the area forever. However, the Park Hill is the last of the largest housing projects still left in Louisville, Kentucky. It is true that some of the other projects are left in Louisville, but they are in what's called mixed income housing. Some are Section 8, some are rented, some you can actually buy, but the Park Hill projects remains really housing projects, the last in Louisville, Kentucky, and it is the most dangerous neighborhood in the entire city. It is a very tight-knit community and by far the most dangerous place in Louisville, Kentucky.